So the scene may have looked something like this. An English doctor walks out of his home onto the London streets, starts taking a walk down the street, and shortly thereafter finds something a little unusual. He sees two men, an older man and a younger man, and the younger man seems to be supporting the older man. What he sees next is even stranger. He sees the younger man release the older man, and the older man starts moving forward in a run. The younger man runs around the older man, turning around after about 25 or so steps, and catches the older man before the older man collapses to the ground. The doctor observes this procedure going on several times as the men move down the street. This catch and release, catch and release. The doctor's name is James Parkinson. And what he observes here goes into his seminal paper, an essay on the shaking palsy. This disease, of course, we call today Parkinson's disease. You might think that the inclusion of an anecdote, such like I just described, would be very unusual for a medical paper. And indeed, Parkinson agrees. And he does so in the wonderful 200 years old language with its beautiful rhythm and bounce. It therefore is necessary that some conciliatory explanation should be offered for the present publication, in which it is acknowledged that mere conjecture takes the place of experiment, and that analogy is the substitute for anatomical examination. Indeed, Parkinson provides a preemption of sorts for the criticism that might come his way. It is hoped that the offering of the following pages to the attention of the medical public will not be severely censured. So we can ask, what is Parkinson's purpose here? Parkinson's first purpose is really to draw us to the severity of the disease and address a problem which he believes is present. That problem is that there are some individuals that consider the symptoms of this particular disease to be completely separate entities, completely diseases to themselves. He also tells us that there are other individuals that are taking symptoms and conditions from other diseases and lumping it into this one individual disease that we will come to know as Parkinson's disease. So given the nature of this paper and Parkinson's own anxieties about the quality of it, why does he go and publish? And the answer is that this is really his swan song. Parkinson will be dead 7 years after the publication of this paper. What he really wants to do in this publication is bring to the awareness of the medical professionals that there is a severe disease out there that needs further characterization, and he feels that there are physicians out there that can do a better job than he. His goal is to inspire physicians, individuals that can do the anatomical work that he does not feel comfortable doing or has not been able to do. It is an attempt to nucleate work on this disease and ultimately have medical research come to a greater understanding of it, such that a treatment might become available for those afflicted. Following the preface, Parkinson's paper is divided into 5 chapters. And these chapters can be somewhat redundant, so we are going to bounce around a little bit in order to provide a sequence that is most amenable to understanding the main purpose of Parkinson's paper. In the first paragraph, he introduces history which really centers on, again, the 2 main symptoms or conditions: the progressive shaking and the forward lean that we discussed in the introduction. He goes into depth in a later chapter about the nature of these tremors. And tremors can be components of different types of diseases, Parkinson tells us that, and he wants to make it clear to practitioners that this tremor occurs only when the individual's arm or head, whatever it might be, is at rest. Or this tremor can even occur when the limb is being supported. Once the arm or affected body part goes into action, the tremor subsides. Parkinson really drives home the point that this is a tremor that occurs upon rest, not upon action, and that clinicians should be aware of that. The forward lean he describes in greater detail as well, stating that as the lean becomes more and more progressive with time, that the patient has a harder time maintaining balance, and when standing, the weight will shift onto the balls or even the toes of the feet, which causes the patient to ultimately really lose the ability to walk in a controlled fashion. Parkinson also describes other symptoms that occur as the disease progresses. And one thing makes absolutely clear is that this is a progressive and an unrelenting disease that has only one outcome, which is the death of the patient. Difficulty in swallowing can be one of the symptoms. Difficulty in containing saliva in the mouth, so drooling can occur. There can be a failure of peristalsis, causing defecation to become less and less frequent. So what Parkinson is really telling us is that this is a disease that is most severe. It is a disease which truly robs the patient of dignity, and thus he's really trying to inspire other scientists to take up this mission to characterize this illness so that possibly some treatment might occur. Parkinson outlines 6 cases, and case is really not quite the right word. 3 of his cases are individuals that he's either met on the street or observed from afar, as is the case with the individual we discussed in the introduction. 2 of these individuals he had conversations with, and he discussed the symptoms, he discussed their history, but again, this is on the sidewalk. This is not taking place in a doctor's office. They are not individuals under the care of Parkinson. These are just fortunate encounters for Parkinson to have to further document his study of this disease. 3 appear to be more professional observations. These patients seem to have been observed in Parkinson's office, and he describes their symptoms, their histories. What he really stresses, again, is the common nature of a couple things. One, this is a progressive disease. This is a disease for which the patients really have no idea when or how this may have arisen. They may have some ideas, such as one individual thinks it's from sleeping on a damp floor for months while he was in prison. Another thinks his Parkinson's is due to excessive drink. And the other just has no idea whatsoever. What we see in these cases is what Parkinson keeps describing. The tremor upon rest, the forward lean. All his patients are attesting to having these symptoms, whether he sees them on the street or whether he sees them in his office. And immediately, Parkinson describes his discomfort with trying to assign a cause for this disease. He has limited observations. He has not done any anatomical studies. So he is not comfortable with coming up with a cause, but that, of course, does not stop him from hypothesizing. The hypothesis, of course, is to get the ball rolling, to get the experiments into action, and so he creates hypotheses that can be tested. He really thinks that this disease is one of the spinal cord. He doesn't believe that this is a disease of the brain because he doesn't see any impairments of higher cognitive functions. So he really thinks this is a disease in the spinal cord. Again, he states that his patients don't rightly know how they might have come upon some cause of their illness. But Parkinson states that the spinal cord, being in the very flexible backbone, could possibly be damaged in movements. But it really sounds like he is guessing here. He really doesn't seem to believe it. And that makes sense. If it were the twists and turns of the backbone abrading the spinal cord, then certainly you would expect to see this disease in a much greater fraction of the population. So ultimately, what Parkinson is really left with is his objective. The inspiration for individuals to dive deeper into this disease, for anatomists to perform autopsies, to try to discern what are the defects that are occurring. Are they in the spinal cord? Are they in the brain? What part of the body is really affected? How is it affected? And so I hope you've enjoyed this look into the history of Parkinson's disease. Our goal really is to see what was Parkinson's great contribution. And he didn't do much study, didn't have many patients, he didn't do any autopsies, but he did achieve his objective, which was to inspire individuals to study this disease more. And now we have a much greater understanding of Parkinson's disease. So thank you very much for watching.